Ever notice how explaining yourself to the wrong person feels like trying to teach a brick wall algebra? You call, no answer. You text, left on read. You send an essay-length paragraph, and congratulations, you just donated your power for free. Marcus Aurelius warned, you have power over your mind, not outside events. The Stoics didn't beg, chase, or explain. They mastered a sharper weapon: silence. Today I'll show you 6 timeless truths with drills and metrics to turn your quiet into strength. And if you stay to the end, I'll give you the one-sentence mantra that kills over-explaining forever. Truth 1. Silence makes your absence. Have you ever noticed this strange paradox? The louder you try to explain yourself, the less people actually hear you. You type out long paragraphs, you leave voice notes, you stack words on top of word, shopping that somehow this time the explanation will finally land. But here's the truth: words rarely break through indifference. Silence does, because noise is cheap. But absence? Absence is expensive. Let me take you into a story. Years ago, I had a friend I considered family. Whenever distance grew between us, panic took over. I thought if I explained more, clarified more, called more, then maybe I could fix it. So I did what most of us do when we feel someone slipping away. I chased with words. Long phone calls. Apologies I didn't owe. Just to clear the air messages. And what happened? The more I spoke, the less I was heard. The more I chased, the faster they drifted. And then something shifted. Out of exhaustion, I stopped. Not with sarcasm, not with anger. I simply went silent. And 2 things happened almost immediately. They noticed my absence, and I noticed my strength. That's the paradox of silence. When you remove words, you create space. And in that space, reality has no choice but to show up. Marcus Aurelius never begged. He never sent essays to people who misunderstood him. He simply reminded himself in his meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Think about that. If someone doesn't value you, no essay will change them. Your silence, however, will change you. It will return you to yourself. Why does this work? Modern psychology calls it the lost signal effect. Human attention sharpens when something disappears. We scroll endlessly past posts but pause when an account goes dark. We overlook people until they stop showing up. Silence triggers the brain to say, wait, something is missing. Now here's the danger: we confuse silence with passivity, but silence when chosen intentionally is not weakness. It's discipline. It's a conscious choice to stop bleeding energy into someone else's indifference. So here's a practical drill, the No Initiate Week. For 7 days, do not be the first to call, to text, or to explain. Not once. If they value you, they will step in. If they don't, your silence has already spoken. But let's be clear, this isn't manipulation. It isn't about tricking someone into missing you. It's about liberation. It's about noticing where energy naturally flows when you stop forcing it. During those 7 days, you'll feel the itch. Your thumb will hover over the send button. That's your cue. Redirect the energy. The 30 minutes you would have spent overthinking that text, use it for something that returns energy to you. Read Marcus. Journal. Train. Build something that actually matters. By day 4, you'll notice something fascinating: your anxiety drops. Not because the situation magically fixed itself, but because you stopped feeding it. Measure it. Seriously. Use a 15 scale. Day 1, your anxiety might be a 4. By day 4, expect it to drop by at least 1 full point. That's not imagination. That's data. That's proof that silence heals faster than over-explaining. And if someone finally asks about your silence, don't write a novel. Don't dump a history. Here's your line: I value what we shared. I'm giving it space to be what it is now. Short, clear, stoic. Elbert Hubbard said it perfectly. He who does not understand your silence will probably not understand your words. Think about that. If they can't hear your silence, what makes you think they'll ever understand your essays? Every double text, every midnight explanation, every wall of words, that's wasted breath. But silence. Silence you hold today will echo louder than anything you could write tomorrow. Now, some people will call silence cold, but silence is not punishment. It is clarity. It separates those who value you from those who only valued your availability. It reveals the difference between connection and convenience. So remember, this absence reveals truth. Because in silence, two things always happen. First, they notice you were valuable, and second, you notice you always were. And that's the real gift. Truth two, silence returns control to you. Here's something the Stoics knew and most of us forget. Begging is borrowed self-worth. When you beg for answers, when you beg for validation, when you beg for respect, what you're really saying is this: my peace depends on your permission. And that, my friend, is not peace. That is prison. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, political enemies, even plague. Imagine if the Emperor of Rome had spent his days begging every senator to like him, begging every rival to approve of him. His empire would have collapsed overnight. Instead, Marcus trained himself to see the truth. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," which means if your thoughts are desperate, your soul becomes desperate. If your thoughts are grounded, your soul becomes grounded. So how do you return control to yourself? How do you stop living like a hostage to other people's moods? You do it by separating data from drama, and that's where silence is more powerful than 1,000 texts. Think of this example. You send a message at 6:12 p.m. Hours pass, no reply. Instantly, your mind begins weaving stories. They don't respect me. They're ignoring me. Maybe I did something wrong. But pause for a second. None of that is fact. None of that is data. That's drama. The only fact is, this message sent. No reply yet. That's all you truly know. The Stoics left us a simple drill for moments like this. I call it fact, story, virtue. Fact, what actually happened. Message sent. No reply yet. Story, what am I adding on top of the fact I'm telling myself they don't respect me? Virtue, what's my next action rooted in Stoic strength? Maybe temperance, don't double text. Maybe courage, start my workout. Maybe justice, give space instead of demanding. Maybe wisdom, redirect energy to what I control. Silence gives you the room to do this exercise. If you reply too quickly, you feed the drama. If you stay silent, you create space. And in that space, you get to choose virtue over panic. Now, this is just philosophy. Modern psychology proves the same thing. A 2018 study in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found that people who reframed negative thoughts at least 5 times in a week reported a 27% drop in anxiety spikes compared to those who reacted emotionally. Think about that. Nearly 1/3 of your stress gone not by fixing others, but by fixing your interpretation. So here's your practical drill this week. Whenever a trigger happens, pause. Write down one fact, one story, one virtue. Do this at least 5 times. Measure it. By the 5th reframe, your emotional spikes will flatten by about 20 to 30%. That's not fluff. That's neuroscience catching up with Stoicism. And to anchor this even deeper, add a micro practice. The very moment you feel the urge to beg, explain, or chase, stop. Take 2 deep breaths. Drop your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Then in the next 10 minutes, take one virtuous action. Send the report you've been avoiding. Do 10 push-ups. Read a single page of meditations. Every time you do this, you're proving a simple truth. My peace is mine. I don't auction it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Silence is the training ground where that truth becomes real. Because the less you chase their response, the more you reclaim your control. Think about it. Every time you over-explain, you hand over your dignity like loose change. Every time you double text, you loan out your self-respect with interest. And noise is a loan that always costs more than you think. But silence is different. Silence is an investment that compounds into strength. And from this silence, something profound begins to happen. The moment you stop reacting, the world loses its grip on you. Gossip can't hook you. Neglect can't hollow you out. Their moods, their silence, their approval or disapproval, none of it can control you anymore. Because you've remembered the only thing that truly belongs to you, your response. This is the Stoic walk. Calm, unhurried, not owned by moods, not owned by gossip, not owned by the approval of people who don't even own themselves. So the next time your mind screams, say something, fix it. Explain yourself, remember this noise is weakness in disguise. Noise is self-betrayal disguised as connection. Silence chosen deliberately is power. Silence is how you return home to yourself. And when you stand in that silence, you'll hear the only line that matters: my peace is mine. I don't auction it. Truth 3, silence lets you hear your own wisdom. Here's the paradox. In a world drowning in noise, the rarest sound you will ever hear is your own wisdom. Think about what most of us do when life hurts. We run outward. We call 5 friends. We binge advice on social media. We send long, anxious messages hoping someone else will fix what feels broken inside us. And sure, it feels like action. It feels like movement. But in reality, it's escape. Because the more noise you consume, the further you drift from the one voice that knows the way forward, your own. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal. He faced plagues. He faced wars at the very edges of the empire. Yet notice this, his meditations were not letters to friends or speeches to senators or manifestos to the crowd. They were private conversations with himself. Why? Because silence is the arena where truth finally rises above noise. Think of it like a muddy glass of water. If you stir it, the water stays cloudy. If you let it sit in silence, the dirt settles. The water clears. Clarity doesn't come from adding more. It comes from stillness. And that's what silence gives you. When you stay quiet long enough, your mind begins to reveal truths you couldn't hear before. Realizations like, I'm not angry they left. I'm angry I ignored the red flags. I don't need closure. I need boundaries. It wasn't rejection. It was redirection. None of these truths come from another person's mouth. They don't arrive through another late-night debate or another over-explained text. They come only when you stop explaining, stop chasing, and finally start listening. And here's the beautiful part modern science agrees. A 2019 Harvard study on mindfulness showed that people who spent just 15 minutes a day in quiet reflection reduced their emotional reactivity by 28% in only 4 weeks. Think about that. Not by fixing their circumstances, not by forcing others to change, but simply by observing their own thoughts. So how can you practice Stoic silence today? Here's a drill I call the Stillness Journal. It takes 5 minutes each night. Write one sentence. What actually happened today? That's the fact. Then one sentence. What story did I add? That's the drama. And finally, one sentence. What virtue will I practice tomorrow? That's the solution. 3 lines. That's it. And here's what happens. In just a week, you start seeing patterns. Maybe you notice that you always assume silence means disrespect, or that you replay arguments 3 days longer than necessary. Awareness is the seed of wisdom, and silence is the soil where it grows. Let me give you a personal story. Years ago, after a painful breakup, I filled my nights with noise, podcasts, late-night calls, endless scrolling. I told myself I was processing, but deep down I knew the truth. I was drowning in noise because silence scared me. Silence would have forced me to face the reality I was avoiding. I had lost myself long before I lost the relationship. When I finally turned everything off, no music, no messages, just me and a blank journal, the realization came in one sentence. I had been begging for someone else's love because I had stopped cultivating my own. That single sentence hurt like fire, but it also healed, because once it was out in the open, I could begin. That's why silence is not emptiness. It's evidence. Evidence of what's real, of what you've been avoiding, of the wisdom waiting underneath the noise. So here's your challenge this week. 10 entries in your stillness journal. 10. By the 5th entry, you'll notice your clarity shift. By the 10th, you'll notice your emotional spikes, those sudden waves of anger, sadness, or anxiety drop by at least 20%. Track it on a 1 to 5 scale. Day 1, your stress might be a 4. By day 7, it could be a 3. That's progress. That's data. And if you resist this practice, remember silence feels threatening only because it holds the truth you need most. The silence you avoid is usually the silence you need. So the next time you want to call or text or explain or scroll, pause. Just pause. Open a blank page. Write those 3 lines. Then close the notebook. That's it. Let silence do the heavy lifting. Because silence isn't passive. It's not sitting back and doing nothing. Silence is active listening to yourself. And the Stoics knew once you hear your own wisdom, you no longer need the world to approve or explain or rescue you. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And silence is the practice that reveals your estimate. Silence is what separates the thing itself from the story you've been telling yourself about it. So let this line become your anchor. Silence is not emptiness, it's evidence. Evidence that you are wiser than you think. Evidence that you don't need to beg for answers because the answers are already inside you, waiting for you to be quiet long enough to hear them. Truth 4, silence exposes patterns over promises. Here's a brutal truth: words can lie, but patterns don't. Anyone can say it'll change. Anyone can type I care about you. Anyone can promise it'll do better next time. But silence, your silence creates the space where actions have to speak for themselves. And when you stop filling that space with explanations, justifications, or excuses, you finally see the truth: who shows up and who disappears. I learned this the hard way. I had a friend who apologized beautifully every time they let me down. Missed calls, broken plans, last-minute bailout. Siege time, they had the perfect words. I'm sorry, life's just crazy right now. And every time I forgave them. Their words were smooth enough to soften my anger, but then I tried something different. I went silent. No long replies, no arguments, no chasing, and the pattern revealed itself. No matter what they said, their actions remained the same. Silence exposed what I had been too busy explaining away. Marcus Aurelius warned us, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Words debate, actions demonstrate. And here's why this matters. Human beings are wired to respond to promises because they light up the brain's reward system. Neuroscience research shows that dopamine doesn't spike from fulfillment, it spikes from anticipation. That means you actually feel good when someone promises to do better, even if they never follow through. That's why apologies without change can feel so convincing in the moment. But silence. Silence removes the dopamine hit. It creates space where only consistency counts. So how do we practice Stoic silence to expose patterns? Here's a drill. Observe without explaining. For 3 days, cut the noise. No defensive texts. No clarifying your worth. Just observe. Create 3 columns in your journal: shows up, flakes, provokes. Every time you interact with someone during those 3 days, put their action into one of those columns. Don't justify it. Don't add a story, just track. At the end of 3 days, look at the page. The truth will be staring at you. Your metric: at least 15 interactions logged. By the end, you should notice patterns that words had previously hidden, because silence forces you to watch behavior instead of believing promises. And this doesn't just apply to friendships or dating. Let's take work. Imagine a coworker who constantly says he'll handle that project, and every time they drop the ball, and you cover for them. If you keep reminding, chasing, or explaining, they never face the mirror of accountability. But if you stop covering, if you go silent, the pattern screams louder than any confrontation. Either they step up or they expose themselves. This is why silence is not weakness. It's strategy. It's emotional aikido. You redirect the energy back onto the other person by refusing to add your own noise. Seneca once wrote, "How much better to heal than to seek revenge from injury." Silence is how you heal, not by ignoring reality, but by finally seeing it clearly. Let me share another story. A woman I coached kept getting stuck in toxic dating cycles. Every partner told her, "You're amazing, ill commit, I just need time." And she believed the words year after year. So I asked her to run the 3-day drill. Just 3 days of silence, just watching. Within a week, the pattern was undeniable. They only called when it was convenient, never when she truly needed support. Their words were elaborate, but their pattern was neglect. Silence gave her the courage to walk away. Why does this work? Because words are instant, but patterns are long-term. Silence removes your interference, so their reality becomes visible. And patterns predict the future far better than promises. In fact, psychologists will tell you that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, not intentions, not apologies, not declarations. So here's a boundary line you can keep in your pocket. If someone pushes you for explanations, just say, "I trust patterns more than promises." Short, calm, stoic. You don't need to argue. You don't need to debate. You state the principle and then let silence carry it. And here's the deeper truth: silence isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting you. Because when you keep explaining, You're not actually convincing them, you're confusing yourself. You're diluting your clarity with their excuses. Silence clears the fog. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Silence may reveal that someone you love cannot meet you where you are, but it's better to face that truth than to drown in pretty words. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Extend that to others. If it is not consistent, do not believe it." So the next time someone tries to win you with paragraphs, apologies, or speeches, pause. Don't rush to answer. Go silent. Track the pattern. Because words can be edited, actions cannot. And that's Stoic wisdom. You don't trust noise. You trust reality. Line to remember, I trust patterns, not paragraphs. Because in the end, silence exposes what words work so hard to hide. Truth 5. Not explaining yourself is high confidence. Let's be honest, being misunderstood hurts. There's something in us that screams, but that's not what I meant. Or if I could just explain, they'd finally see my heart. We want to defend ourselves, to correct the record, to prove that we're not who they think we are. And so we type long messages, rehearse arguments in our minds, and chase closure that never comes. But here's the Stoic twist: confidence doesn't beg for understanding. Confidence lives in alignment. When your intentions are clean, your actions consistent, and your silence loud enough to stand on its own. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In other words, don't argue your philosophy. Embody it. Don't explain your worth. Live it. I once had a colleague who constantly twisted my ideas in meetings. If I spoke, they'd interrupt. If I suggested, they'd minimize. My instinct was to over-explain, long follow-up emails, detailed clarifications, defending my intentions again and again. But every word seemed to feed the fire. The more I explained, the smaller I felt. Finally, I stopped. No rebuttals, no defense. Just calm delivery of my work on time, done well. And something fascinating happened. The room began to notice the pattern. My results were clear. Their noise was obvious. My silence carried more credibility than my paragraphs ever could. And here's why. Over-explaining is rarely about clarity. It's about fear. Fear of being misjudged. Fear of being disliked. Fear of losing connection. But the Stoics understood something timeless: you can't control another person's judgment. You can only control your actions. Modern psychology backs this up. Research shows that people who constantly justify themselves are perceived as less confident even when their explanations are valid. Why? Because the subtext is, I need you to believe me. True confidence doesn't require belief from others. It requires integrity with self. So let's frame this in Stoic terms. Intention clean. Did you act with justice, wisdom, courage, temperance? Action aligned. Did your choices match your values? If yes, then you owe no defense. The misunderstanding belongs to them, not you. So how do we actually train this kind of confidence? Here's a simple practice. The 2-beat pause. This week, every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. 2 beats, inhale, exhale. Then answer in one clean, linear decline to elaborate it all. Examples. That doesn't work for me. Am not available for that. That's inaccurate. I'll share facts with the relevant people. No essays, no justifications. Just one clear line. Your metric track 10 moments this week where you either held your silence or chose the one-liner instead of the paragraph. At the end, notice how much energy you saved compared to writing long defenses. Because here's the hidden benefit. Not explaining yourself doesn't just protect your energy, it projects power. People begin to recognize that you're not easily swayed, not desperate for approval. They start to listen more carefully because your words are no longer diluted by nervous elaboration. Seneca wrote, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable." And unconquerable doesn't mean never challenged. It means never surrendered. Every time you refuse to plead your case, you build that fortress inside you. Now I know what you might be thinking, but what if silence makes me look guilty? Here's the paradox. Over-explaining often makes you look guiltier than silence ever could. Silence says my actions will speak. Over-explaining says please don't misjudge me. Which one radiates strength? A man once told me he lost weeks of sleep after a breakup because he kept drafting long letters to his ex trying to explain why he wasn't the villain she painted him to be. I asked him if she already decided not to see your worth. Do you think 2,000 words will flip the switch? He laughed painfully. Then he went silent. 2 months later, she was still telling her story, but he was living his truth free of defending himself in a courtroom that didn't exist. Here's the deeper principle. The need to explain is the ego begging for control, but control over others is an illusion. Control over yourself, that's real. Marcus wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your thoughts are filled with, "How do I make them see me clearly?" your soul gets dyed with anxiety. But when your thoughts shift to, "I know my intentions, I know my actions," your soul gets dyed with confidence. So here's your boundary line when pressed for explanations. I don't need to be understood to be at peace. Say it calmly. Say it once. Then let silence do the rest. Because at the end of the day, confidence is not in being universally understood. It's in being unshakably aligned. The people who matter won't need paragraphs to recognize your value. They'll see it in your consistency. And the people who demand endless explanations, they were never listening anyway. So remember this Stoic truth. Don't perform power, become it. Confidence is quiet alignment, intention clean, action consistent, silence steady. And when you stop explaining yourself, you don't just protect your peace, you prove to the world and to yourself that you were strong all along. Truth 6, detachment in silence teaches the lesson. There's a certain power in leaving quietly. No slammed doors, no angry paragraphs, no dramatic speeches, just silence and detachment. Because here's the truth people rarely learn from your words. They learn from your distance. They don't suddenly respect you because you explained yourself for the 10th time. They start to respect you when they realize your energy is no longer available, your presence is no longer guaranteed, and your silence is no longer filling their gaps. Seneca warned us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And that's exactly what silence does. It shifts the suffering. When you detach, you stop replaying the imaginary courtroom in your mind, where you defend yourself against accusations that don't even matter. Instead, the silence turns the spotlight around. Now they sit in their own imagination asking, why didn't he answer? Why did she stop chasing? Did they stop caring? Did I lose something I thought I owned? And Marcus Aurelius gives us the blueprint. What stands in the way becomes the way. Silence isn't avoidance, it's transformation. Instead of letting disrespect block you, you turn it into the path toward freedom. Let me give you a story. A friend of mine worked under a boss who constantly belittled him. Every meeting was a battlefield. He tried arguing back. He tried defending his work. He even sent long emails after hours desperate to prove his value. Nothing changed. Then one week he stopped explaining. He did his work. He left on time. And he gave no emotional energy to the disrespect. 3 things happened. The boss grew restless. Colleagues began to notice the imbalance. And my friend felt lighter than he had in years. The disrespect didn't vanish overnight, but the power dynamic shifted. Silence was no longer weakness, it was armor. And that's the principle. Detachment is not coldness, it's clarity. When you detach in silence, you're not saying, I don't care about people. You're saying, I care too much about my peace to trade it for chaos. That's strength, that's discipline, that's stoicism in practice. So why does silence teach the lesson? Because people don't change when you lecture them. They change if ever when your absence speaks louder than your presence. Detachment shifts control. As long as you react, they control the game. But the moment you detach, the game ends. Silence reveals truth. The one who values you will notice the distance and adjust. The one who used you will fade. The one who manipulated you will rage, because control has been lost. Here's a practical drill you can use. The 24-hour rule. The next time you feel disrespected, here's your test. No immediate reply. Don't fire back a text. Don't call to explain. Wait 24 hours. In that silence, your emotions will settle. After 24 hours, ask, does this still deserve my energy? If yes, respond once calmly in a single sentence. If no, let silence be your final word. Your metric track 3 instances this month. Ask yourself, did regret decrease? Did clarity increase? Did you feel lighter? Most people find that silence reduces regret by at least 50% compared to heated reactions. But here's the hidden lesson most people miss: your silence isn't just teaching them, it's teaching you. It teaches you that you don't need the last word to hold the stronger position. You don't need their closure to move forward. And you don't need to keep bleeding in front of people who were never capable of holding your pain. That's detachment. That's freedom. Think about it. How many hours, days, even years have been wasted trying to force people to see your worth? Imagine reclaiming that time by walking away once silently with dignity. That's the lesson. Silence teaches your worth is not up for debate. Here's the Stoic practice: exit with dignity. The next time you're tempted to send that long closure message, remember this line: I don't slam doors. I simply walk through them. That's the Stoic exit. No tantrum, no courtroom. Just quiet, resolute detachment. And here's the paradox. The less you chase, the more respect you command. The less you explain, the more people notice your strength. The less you beg, the more you attract relationships rooted in mutual respect, not dependency. Because true confidence isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's steady. It's the silence of someone who knows their value doesn't shrink just because someone else failed to see it. So let me leave you with this. Silence is not emptiness. It's evidence. Evidence of self-respect. Evidence of control. Evidence of strength. You don't need to chase. You don't need to beg. You don't need to explain. You need to embody. You need to detach. And you need to let silence do what noise never could. If what you just heard cut through the noise and struck something deep inside, you don't let it fade. Anchor it right now with this mantra. Say it out loud, type it in the comments, let it echo in your mind and carry it into your day. My silence is my last word and my strongest one. This isn't just a sentence. It's a declaration, a decision that from this moment forward, you stop giving away your peace to those who haven't earned it. It's you choosing strength over noise, dignity over drama, and clarity over chaos. So here's what I want you to do. Pause, breathe, then take 3 simple actions. First, like this video not for me, but as a signal to yourself that you're done with chasing, begging, and explaining. Second, share it with one person who's still drowning in the trap of over-explaining. They need this reminder, and you could be the reason they reclaim their power. And third, subscribe to Making Life Better. Because this is just the beginning. Every week, we sharpen ancient Stoic truths into practical tools for modern battles. Don't let this be just another video that you scroll past and forget. Make it a turning point. Let your silence speak. Let your strength grow and keep walking forward, calm, clear, unshaken.